Week 10 DFS recap. I had a few sweats yesterday on DraftKings, ultimately came up a little bit short, but still one of my better weeks of the year. We'll break all of that down, including all of the action on Underdog, Battle Royales, Dawg Bowls. We'll take a look at the Monday Night Football slate, see if we can cook up a pick'em winner and maybe a little Week 11 first look. Also, we will review the Eliminators. I think I'm done in the main eliminator, guys, but we shall see. Maybe there's a miracle on Monday night in store. I'm Pete Overzet. This is the Portfolio Review. Let's do it.
I suffer from a debilitating condition known as atropic chalkitis.
Peter's one of the greatest depositors I've ever seen.
Trust the process. Let's go. Let's go.
I got auto matched with Levittan. This is bullshit.
If I just go the other way, in that 66, I win all the money. All the money.
If I had 150 lineups, I'd win too.
Process over results.
Illuminati make a bitch go crazy. I don't know which one of these my baby. Bust down AP, cut 5 bullets in your head like KD. Bust it, bitch go bust it. And I had 10 pints with me in Russia.
Hey everyone.
Hey everyone. Indeed. What is up? What is up? The chat has arrived. David doing as usual. Death, taxes, and Monday morning gifted memberships by David, the only constants in life. Thank you as always, sir. What is up, Kyle, Steven, Expendables, AJ, Josh? Hope Josh is in the lab for this Monday Night Football pick'em. Mookie, Ash. Mookie, did I see you have a good day yesterday on Underdog? I feel like when I was tabbing through the leaderboards, I saw your name up there in a few spots. What's up, Brandon? What's up, Ash? Drac? Yes. In fact, I had 150 lineups in the early slate, and unfortunately, I didn't win too. I might need to dabble in some of the early slate stuff. Seems like you guys have a good time over there. What's up, Jay Money, Big Dan, the Chief, Lewis, Pi Dev? How are we doing this morning? Yeah, I thought I had some fun stuff cooking yesterday on DraftKings. I was like really dialed in with my reads in a large part due to the cram. You know, my big stands were I was going to lock button Henderson, and then I wanted to play one of Derrick Henry or Gibbs in my lineups. When I started running the lineups, I basically could only get to Derrick Henry with the stuff I liked, and the Gibbs stuff just wasn't working. So that was tough. I also had kind of a rule of only one of the chalk running backs. Ended up playing Achane, fading mostly Dowdle and CMC, and then was kind of living in that 6 to 7K range at wide receiver, the Chris Olave, the Nico Collins. So like macro wise, I was all over it yesterday and just couldn't get the pieces to quite line up. And so I'll pull up these teams here. We'll go through the DraftKings lineups, and then we will, of course, head over to Underdog. We got the screen shared. Let's get the coffee rolling, though. We can't get ahead of ourselves here. Let's get some coffee going, and then we will dive in to the DFS action. All right. We got some coffee going here. Yeah, so I had two main lineups that I played, of course, in the SPY and in the red zone, and they had a very similar core. This was the lineup in the SPY, and, you know, at one point, I think after the 1 p.m. games ended, this was, you know, top 5 in the SPY, but it had no PMR remaining. So I knew this thing was going to sink like a rock. It ends up settling in 140th place, 190.4 points, you know, $350 there. So a little like 3.5x cash here. But this was a Drake May kind of game stack around Tampa and New England. And I know when I did the cram yesterday, like no one mentioned really wanting to play Drake May. I thought this was a pretty good spot for them and obviously like this game environment. So I get Drake May at 7.7%. I stack him up with Diggs at 9.5% and Trevion Henderson at 17%. Really started to get increased confidence in Trevion Henderson as the morning moved along. We got the report, I think it was from like Tracy Wolf, who said that, you know, Henderson was expected to see more work. And I just like this game environment. And then I did a double bring back with the cheap Bucs pieces, Kate Otten at 10%, Tez Johnson at 16.8%. Tez and Cade, a smash. Henderson, a smash. Diggs, okay, 15.6 points. And then May just couldn't quite get the massive game to come together. Henderson kind of ended up stealing away from him just because he did so much on the ground and didn't do much through the air. And May also had that pick in the end zone that was pretty rough. But that block hits. And then I played DeVonta Achane at 26.6%. He goes for 43. And then the play that just really hurt that I paid up for was Derrick Henry at 6,800. He scores 11.4 points. And obviously when Gibbs goes absolutely nuts, that kind of pivot there is not going to hit. This lineup also had Chris Olave at 1.6%. Really, really nice ownership on Chris Olave in his first game without Rashid Shaheed. He goes for 24.4. And then the last piece on this lineup was the correlated DST with the running back. Ravens defense, 1.7%. They score 8 points. So felt really good about this lineup. Felt really good about my reads here. Just couldn't quite get the pieces to come together. You really needed to have Gibbs along with Achane and Henderson to make some noise. And then the Baker side of the of playing that game ended up being slightly better from an overall points per dollar standpoint. You can see that here in first place, right? Andrew takes it down, has the Baker Mayfield to Igbukah and Tez double stack. No Otton on this one. You know, Otton with the triple would have been better. They actually take down this tournament with a 1.9 snowflake from Hunter Henry, which is pretty impressive. But then you do have Henderson, you do have Gibbs, you do have Achane, and then Jawan Jennings, Texans D. So like structurally, this is like my lineup. It's playing the Baker side instead of the Drake May side. It's playing Gibbs instead of Derrick Henry. And then with the extra money that I saved by playing Henry, I was able to get up to Olave. They go down to Jawan Jennings. Otherwise, like the structure of this lineup is very similar. So it stings to be on like the right macro, the right roster construction, and not get all the puzzle pieces to come together in a massive way. But I think by far, not just results oriented, but I think by far my best process week on DraftKings, and felt really good about how I approached the slate. So yeah, can't complain too much. And then as you can see with this other lineup I played in the red zone, it was a very similar core. This one also has Achane, it has Henry, it has Henderson, it has Tez Johnson, but then I ran a Davis Mills double stack here. Davis Mills comes in at 2.1%, Nico Collins 6.5%, Dalton Schultz 6.3%. Davis Mills ends up being the highest scoring quarterback on the slate. He scores 28.68 points. Nico goes for 25.6 and Schultz goes for 18.3. We already talked about Tez. And then this lineup also has Amon-Ra St. Brown. And this was my late window hammer here. This team was in like 7th or 8th place with Amon-Ra left to go. And this was the one I had pulled up on the ShipCast yesterday. I'm like, okay, like this is within striking distance, like a 20-point game from Amon-Ra, and we could legitimately take this down. Unfortunately, a couple things happened. One, Trey McBride went absolutely nuts. Jahmyr Gibbs went absolutely nuts. And then Amon-Ra kind of cooled off. It ended up really being a Jameson Williams second half there for the Lions. So this team ends up finishing in 24th place for $750 here. So again, nice to get, a top 1% finish here, but definitely disappointing relative to where it was sitting. And you see this team that ran away with it here in first place. It's the Baker Mayfield triple to Igbukah, Tez, and Cade Otton, but they get Trey McBride in the flex for 30.7 points. Of course, Achane and Gibbs, who combined for 84 points. Jawan Jennings, who was like a really key chalk piece as far as a value saver at 4,600. He goes for 18. And then Saints defense as well at 12. Saints defense, we mentioned that on the cram. Like, how do you, get multiple things right if you're fading Rico Dowdle? Playing Saints defense at 4.2%. The Rico chalk doesn't really smash, and you get 12 points from a $2,400 defense. Not bad there for this drafter, H. Bender. How did that lineup not ship? It was the classic thing where you are never the late game seemed to go one of two ways, right? It either completely falls on your face and the PMR is just an elaborate hoax and you wish that you had everything going early, or they go absolutely bonkers. And even sitting on what looks like a really nice lineup cannot withstand 30 points from McBride, 41 points from Gibbs. The other one that was up here was, can I find the Seahawks defense? That one was scaring me for a while. I guess Seahawks defense didn't end up being a key piece in these top lineups. But for a while I was like, oh man, am I going to get buried by Seahawks defense? But it looks like the Seahawks didn't even crash the top of the leaderboard here. Here they are finally. Seahawks defense at 2.6% scored 21. And that was initially, I was like, oh, this is going to be the end of me here. This was one of the teams I think I was staring at for a while. But even Kyren Williams going for 22.4, like playing Kyren over Derrick Henry would have been a similar, I think, process play of like, hey, everyone likes the passing game for the Ravens. Everyone likes the passing game for the Rams. What if you pivot and play the running back? So yeah, even those 12 extra points from Kyren Williams would have come in handy. And the Derrick Henry stuff was pretty tilting because he loses a goal line carry to Justice Hill. It's like traditionally that is the Derrick Henry role. It's like, come on, you're not going to give Derrick Henry, the big dog, the carry at the 1 yard line. So yes, I'm tilting, put it in the paper that I'm tilting. But yeah, can't complain too much there. Getting a team here finishing in 24th place. So ends up being a pretty good day for me. The team, I think I had one other one that I remixed in here. I tossed this lineup in 2 different contests. And then I think I had one more very similar core that was a Josh Allen stack. Same thing. This one did have Rico. It was Derrick Henry, Rico, and Henderson. Did have Trey McBride. It was a Josh Allen double stack to Khalil Shakur and Keon Coleman. Jags defense. Chris Olave, again, a play I really liked, and I kind of like that mini correlation with Rico. But you see here, Rico Dowdle at 56% in this contest. I assume that was fairly similar across most of the single entries. Only scores 15.3 points at 6,300. Certainly not going to get it done at that ownership, and he ended up being a pretty good fade if you use that salary elsewhere. Oh, Kalani says, I think worst part is Chalk Jennings outscored Amon-Ra. No, he definitely did. He definitely did there. You can see Jawan Jennings at 24% scored 18.1 points. And then, no, this is the team I have, Amon-Ra. Amon-Ra scores 16.8. So yeah, at, almost $4,000 cheaper, and Jawan Jennings outscores Amon-Ra. I thought Amon-Ra was just going to have a nuclear day after he scored that touchdown on the first drive. But it just Gibbs just kills their drives because he just houses every other touch. And then they had the JMO drive or two and just didn't have the right pieces there. Yeah, Brandon mentioned this too. We were going through this on the cram. He says those 6 to 7K wide receivers we talked about on the cram came in clutch yesterday. They were so low owned. I should see if I I think when I was running some of my lineups, I ended up saying I wanted min one of like the Nico, Chris Olave, Devontae Adams, and I can't remember, Brandon, if there was another of those guys in the 6 to 7K range, but I ended up building some lineups where I forced one of those in there, and that's why I had a Nico and a Chris Olave in all of those. But yeah, getting down from the Puka, Amon-Ra, JSN, which was the mega chalk expensive guys who none of them really smashed. JSN was going to get there, except the defense scored so many points. Puka, they just didn't really need him as much in the second half. Adam scores the touchdown. Kyren gets 2. So yeah, a pretty good day to fade the high end chalk. CMC also gets stuffed there. So these are the weeks you want to win, right? Like we sometimes complain throughout the year about the chalk hitting and, projections being so good, yada, yada. Like this was the week. This was the week when most of the chalk failed. I mean, Achane at 28%, that's certainly popular, but nothing monstrous, right? It's not like Rico Dowdle at 60% or some of these ownerships we've seen previously where these guys hit at massive ownership. I mean, this was the week to win with some low-owned plays. Even Baker Mayfield in those triples, The pass catchers come in fairly high owned. Igbuka 16%, Tez 17.9%, K-Dot 10, and yet Baker's only 5.9%. So most people were electing to play the Bucs values as one-offs and not stack him up. And so getting the Baker stack there, none of those pieces even went that crazy. I mean, Igbuka scoring 26 points is about fair value for a 7K price tag. I guess Tez is the real big winner there, 20 points. It's just all of them slight hits on their value and ownership, and that's all it took on a week like this where you needed to just have the salary to get up to a Gibbs and an Achane. Justice Hill goal line carry is valid tilt for sure. Let's see here. Aaron says he took down a $3 DK tourney for a $500 win. Lineup had 221 points. Congratulations, Aaron. Sounds like a nice lineup. Waylon says, can you touch on how you landed on Mills? I never once considered Houston sack, so just trying to figure out that leak in my game. So I mentioned this on the cram, but one of the things I did yesterday, and this was a little different for me, sometimes I have like a few stacks that I want to play, and so I will run the sims around those stacks. Yesterday was different in that I had the core that I like to play. And so I built with a few rules, and I said, I want to lock button Henderson and Achane. I want to play one of Swift or Henry. And then I really wanted to include one of those 6 to 7K wide receivers. And then I ran optimals and sims around those constraints and those rules that I had built for my lineups. And because Nico was one of those 6 to 7K wide receivers I wanted to include, then I was starting to get some stacking partners naturally with those wide receivers because I was still looking at double stacks there. And so that's what ended up happening because Nico showed up. And so then Davis Mills as a cheap salary relief. And I think the thing about both the Saints double stack with Tyler Shuck, Olave, and Juwan, and then, of course, the Mills stack with Dalton Schultz and Nico is you're getting two things, right? Well, you're actually getting three things. You're getting a really cheap vomit stack from those guys. You're getting a super condensed offense, right? I mean, especially the Saints. I mean, it's just Juwan Johnson and Olave in that passing game now. And then you're also getting low ownership. You know, people aren't going to play those. So that is something that if you guys watch the Bully the Sim show on Fridays with Utica, he normally has a vomit stack or two for us. That is an angle he really likes to play of like, can you just get to the 20 some points from your vomit stack quarterback? It really opens you up to jam in both Gibbs and Achane. And that value is so helpful, especially when there's a play like Gibbs, who I didn't even get to, but guys like Gibbs and Henry, they're not projecting super well. There's a reason that they're not chalk. You're looking at issues structurally with Henry not catching passes, Gibbs in a timeshare with David Montgomery. So the optimizers aren't going to naturally like those teams. How are you going to get a build that can actually facilitate those in a smart way? It's probably paying down at quarterback. So that's just a long way to say, you know, if there's multiple high-end pieces you're looking to get on the slate, going down to some of those vomit stacks, I think is viable and something I need to consider more often. And it makes sense, right? Why the field doesn't get there. They're called a vomit stack for a reason. It feels gross. No one wants to put their money on Tyler Shuck and Davis Mills, knowing that a meltdown game is just fully within the range of outcomes. But when you salary adjust it, and then I thought this week was just so unique because it was such an obvious way to stack some of those cheap guys. Let's take a look at the Millie winner here. And again, it's just I didn't have any teams in the Millie, but again, it's just that exact same structure of a team. You have the triple stack with the bring back from that New England game. It's a Baker, Igbuka, Tez, Cade Otton, and then you bring it back with Trevion Henderson. You play Achane and Gibbs, and then you have Juwan Jennings as the value piece to make it all work. Jets defense also a key thing here at 3.6%. They go for 19, but we talk about, you know, some of these Millie teams that seem so far off the board versus ones that seem pretty logically built. I mean, this is just a classic lineup right here. Triple stack, bring back, and kind of interesting that I think in general, conventional wisdom is in the Millie Maker. The triple stacks probably lower your ceiling because you need to have these truly perfect scores. And yet on a week where, it wasn't the chalk hitting in a massive way, you could get away with the triple stack and just this block of Bucs players getting enough to ship $1 million here for Standish. So congratulations there. Sick lineup to take home $1 million. I think that is about it on DraftKings for me. Ended up being like, I think I had like a couple $100 in play and ended up, making like $1,100 on those lineups. So it's like, even when you have such a good day, it's so hard on DraftKings to absolutely smash unless you're finishing, top 2 or 3 in one of those tournaments. But we will get back to the drawing board in week 11 and see if we can keep it rolling here. I realize I have the wrong banner up here. These were the DraftKings lineup reviews. Let's head over to Underdog now, where I didn't have near as good of a day. Had some nice teams again until it was really McBride who kind of flipped the slate on its head on Underdog, because on DraftKings he was expensive enough that a lot of people weren't getting to him. People were, kind of going away from the 2 tight end lineups to get the 3 running back builds, at least the ones that were really smashing. But on Underdog, where the raw points at the tight end position matter so much, once McBride surpassed that cohort of tight ends who had all scored between like 10 to 15 points, you had like your Theo Johnsons in there, your Dalton Schultzes, etc., then you had to have McBride on Underdog, and that really flipped things on its head. So we can go through and look at some of these lineups here on Underdog and see how we fared. All right, let's check out the Battle Royale here. Another similar week for me as far as, returning about 60% on my buy-ins. Had a few here in the top 500. Had a team there for a while that was in the top 50, but like I said, not enough McBride. And you see this team here that takes it down, and they were able to get McBride to fall to them. So they start Jahmyr Gibbs, which you obviously needed. They get Gibbs at 3. You get Achane at 10, which was possible. I had Achane with some CMC pairings. Like, Achane would fall a good bit. But then the thing that really ties this lineup together is they get Trey McBride falling from ADP of 11 to pick 15. So you get that nutted 3-start combo, Gibbs, Achane, McBride. They come back, get Jackson Dart, who could have even had a bigger game. He left that game early and still had 26.28 points. Play a correlation here, which is kind of a sick correlation where it makes so much intuitive sense. It's Dart to Rome Odunze, where you're saying, hey, Dart probably has a higher raw ceiling than Caleb just because of how much he's used at the goal line for running. But then the pass catchers on the Giants don't really work out from a projection standpoint. I did a sprinkling of Wan'Dale Robinson. I know Darius Slayton had a good game, but from a projection standpoint, Rome Odunze still the highest projecting wide receiver in that game. So you play Dart opposite Rome. And then the other part of this lineup that is so sick is Jamison Williams at 23%, goes for 20.9 points. And, now just staring at this lineup, this is kind of one of those classic decisions you have in a BR draft where you get the GM combo, right? You go Gibbs, Achane. Okay, this is a little unique here. And then boom, you get Trey McBride to fall. And you're like, okay, we're cooking. We just got the GM. Like, this is not going to be a trio of players who is represented on a lot of lineups. And you go Dart in Rome. But a lot of times I think the temptation here is to take the best projecting wide receiver here, where they took J-Mo at pick 34. And so, on a week like this, who would have been one of those wide receivers that was always back there? Probably like a Diggs type, a Garrett Wilson. But they scroll even further here and end up pairing Gibbs with J-Mo and get the double teammate correlation there. So just a really nice lineup here from Notorious Parlay. Like this squad a lot and took advantage of a nice start, but then still decided to basically sacrifice projection with the Jameson pick. I think I only had one or two JMO teams in the big BR in some Jared Goff stacks, but otherwise was not one-offing him. And they decided, hey, I'll sacrifice the probably 3.5 points of projection relative to the Garrett Wilson, Stephon Diggs types, but to correlate it with Gibbs. And I think it was a fun IKB spot, right? Like we talked about it all week. Hey, the Lions aren't going to take their foot off the gas. They are seeing the ghost from that divisional round loss last year against the Commanders. Dan Campbell taking over play calling duties. They're going to go pedal to the metal here. So I like this construction a lot from Notorious Parlay. Essentially 2 correlated games and then just an Achane and Trey McBride one-off as values. So very nice lineup there from Notorious Parlay to take down the big BR. Yeah, I saw you up there, Crutches. Lost DBQ on Gibbs TD, but was 7th in BR, but DeVonta rested with the back alongside McBride. Yeah, man, that one hurt. My top lineup here was a Stafford with Adams and Deebo with a George Kittle. And I was eyeing it a little bit. I'm like, DeVonta is cooking right now, and then leaves with the back. DeVonta continues to be such an awesome pick in the BRs. I think there's always the thought of like, you're the bridesmaid to Puka, but the way DeVonta Adams hits is just so friendly for Underdog. It's with touchdowns, it's with big plays. You don't need, the PPR accumulation that a guy like Puka gets is awesome because he's constantly tallying points, but DeVonta can just rack up UD half-point PPR points so quickly. So yeah, this was one of those teams where I had the Achane in Gibbs combo, even George Kittle here. But the 10.9 from Deebo, just not going to cut it here. 26.9 from Stafford was solid. So yeah, this was a solid lineup, but really needed another 10 points here at wide receiver. Just can't sacrifice that much from Deebo. So, if you have a Nico here instead of Deebo or something along those lines, you have Rome, then you're in the mix here for a top 10 finish. But again, if I just go the other way in that 1v1, I finished top 10, but that's how it goes in the BRs. It's almost silly to talk about the 1v1s and 2v2s in BR because that's the entire game. It's getting the combos right and having them come together in a way that allows you to have a unique team. I'm trying to see if there were any other interesting builds up here at the top. There were lots of different ways to win, though. You see Stafford here. There was a couple different games that kind of unlocked the right constructions around Gibbs Achane. Of course, Stafford in Kittle was enough to keep you in the mix here. Olave was a piece. Egbuka, of course, scored 20.5 points. So you see a few different constructions up here. Here's a Nico, JMO, George Kittle. And most of these top teams up here have Kittle because you couldn't get Trey McBride to come back that much to the Gibbs Achane start. Although Manta Ray did it here in 5th place, but they had Caleb instead of Jackson Dart. And so those 2 extra points ended up keeping them down here in 5th place instead of in the top 2. Yeah, man, the Garrett Wilson stuff, that was rough. He was a late click for me. I started getting to him. I did some Justin Fields to Garrett Wilson stacks. I started to think, hey, I think they're going to have a hard time running on the Browns. I could see Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson, connecting for a big play. Garrett Wilson obviously has the injury, but also 0 points. So was doing absolutely nothing there. I can show you guys my exposures on the day here. Let's see. Can I get it to actually display just Battle Royale? I guess it doesn't really matter. I can just show you all of the exposures. Let me refresh here. Okay. Yeah. So my top drafted player was Devon Achane. Second most was Emeka Egbuka. So pretty nutted there. And then Trey McBride, my 4th most drafted. So you would think I would have had a better day with Achane, Egbuka, McBride, Kittle being 4 of my top 5. Obviously a lot of CMC and Amon-Ra, which hurt. Looking positionally like usual, pretty flat at quarterback. Matthew Stafford, Baker, Lamar, Allen, Drake May, Goff, kind of all in this 12 to 9% range. At running back, after the Achane, CMC, Henry, I was Kyron, Rico, Judkins, Cook, Gibbs. That's the one that hurts, right? you can look at those top exposures, but if the top exposures don't include the guy who's the second highest scoring play on the slate, it's going to be tough. So yeah, Gibbs, not enough there at 12.9%. Did feel good about getting up on Henderson, considering his ownership came in, sub 50%, ended up with 10% Henderson. It was a super tough week for scroll running backs. Henderson stood out. I did do a lot of Swift. I was having a really hard time stomaching the matchups for Breece Hall and Rachaad White. Did a sprinkle of ETN and Ken Walker, but not too scrolly at running back this week. Wide receiver, Zay doesn't get there. That one kind of hurts. Deebo was probably the one that stung the most in my portfolio. He was kind of that undrafted gem who projected well. I don't think too highly of the Lions secondary and figured there'd be a decent amount of garbage time. And as we learned on the ShipCast, he basically exactly hit his fantasy point projection, 0.5 below, as he killed our ShipCast pick'em, but certainly not enough points to be in the mix on winning BR team. So that was unfortunate with the Deebo. And then the tight end stuff, feel good about my tight end exposures, top two, McBride and Kittle, and then a sprinkle of Henry, Laporta, Otten, Kincaid, and then hardly any scrolling this week for me at tight end. Some Andrews, a little bit of Ertz, Theo, Loveland, just a dash of some of these other guys. Let's check in and see who won the Deposit Kingdom tournament. Yeah, it was Mookie. I knew I saw you up there, Mookie. And let me pour some more coffee here as well. Yeah, Pat talking about the ranks on Gibbs. ETR was low on Gibbs relative to ADP preferred elite wide receiver for sure. And this is this dynamic played out a lot last year, specifically with Derrick Henry and Barkley, where every week, two things were true at the exact same time. Those guys have monster 30-point ceilings, but from a median projection standpoint, you can't get the projection to line up and justify the ADP from a median standpoint. And that exists for multiple reasons. In the case of Derrick Henry, not catching passes. In the case of Barkley, he was always going to lose touchdown market share to the Jalen Hurts tush-push projection. And so the projections are never going to get there. And same with Gibbs, right? He is splitting work down the middle with David Montgomery. And even if you ratchet up his efficiency to absurd degrees, and I'm sure Leone and the sushi team would tell you this as well, you can't get the math to work from a median standpoint. But everyone on Underdog understands that Jahmyr Gibbs has the ceiling that he demonstrated. That's why he had an ADP stuck at 1.3 and 1.4, despite the projection not liking it. So one of the things we say in the masterclass, and we have an entire kind of section about this, is thinking about things through the lens of if then. So that's one way of hey, if you're not taking Amon-Ra, if Amon-Ra doesn't smash, well, how else could the Lions put up points on the Commanders? Well, obviously Gibbs becomes a logical extension of that. But also, I just like playing round one mostly by ADP. And I was definitely tilted to the Amon-Ra and Puka over Gibbs, as evidence there. But if you're looking to get exposure to all of the players who have that nuclear ceiling, you basically just want to play round one by ADP. And sometimes there will be glaring, ADPs that just don't make sense. And you should definitely, have a green light to IKB those. But it is a really good lesson in not being a slave to the projection when it comes to monstrous ceilings. And Underdog community priced that correctly, right? People said, I do not care about your median projection on Jahmyr Gibbs. I am taking him at 1.3. And the other part of that I think made sense from a macro standpoint for this slate, in the context of the slate, was just how weak running back points were, or how hard they were to find later in the drafts. So getting your running back one early, from a 2v2 perspective, made a lot of sense. The round one running back versus round 6 wide receiver versus round 1 wide receiver versus round 6 running back, it wasn't even close. The early round running back side is always going to project better just on that slate. So something to think through there if you are just drafting specifically off of rankings or projections. You can end up with some really lopsided exposures that have blind spots to players with multiple, or to monster ceilings. Yes. As Zach says, crazy how right you can be and still not have a winning week. DFS is hard. It really is, man. And it's a constant reminder of, teams and lineups, not exposures, and how important the right combos are. Like, you can be all over it. And if you just don't get those combos, or you don't get the perfect draft room that allows Trey McBride to fall to the Achane and Gibbs stuff, it just makes it really hard. Thank you, Yosh, for the membership. Appreciate you. You got third here in the Deposit Kingdom right here on the screen. One of my only Achane teams. Great contest. Let's see this full squad here from Yosh. Look at Yosh staying on brand. Our resident Detroit Lions super fan rolls out a Jared Goff with Gibbs and JMO. That is sick. That is a very fun stack there. 24.8 for Goff, 36.7 for Gibbs, 20.9 for JMO. You get Achane on here, of course. You get Rome, 17.6, and Kittle, 18.9. Really, really strong team here from Steampunk Mario, and yet it doesn't even take it down. Like, if you told me this score here, 156.4, after looking at the Battle Royale, and I'm sorry to do this to you, I can't help myself. I mean, that's a near, what is that? That's a top 20 team in the large BR. That's a sick team for a smaller contest, but it's Mookie who takes it down here. Let me get back to the Deposit Kingdom. Mookie with a Goff, Gibbs, JMO. So the same thing, Achane, but has Igbuka instead of Rome. So that's just the difference there. Rome versus Igbuka on this team. So if you just go the other way in that 1v1, you chop first place with Mookie. CMG has the same Gibbs, Achane, but does get the McBride. So it was possible in the Deposit Kingdom here. Gibbs, Achane, McBride. You get Nico, who is that other piece. Like, if you had Nico around pick 20, if you had Igbuka slightly ahead of that, you were certainly live to have those combinations right. And then Rome was a guy I pretty much fully faded on Underdog yesterday. I had him in a few Caleb stacks, but I was not one-offing Rome. I think I did have him in one dart and mini correlation, but not having those 17.6 points there and having a lot of like Deebo, Garrett Wilson, Diggs, that certainly hurt, I think, a lot of my min caches. Catching up on the chat here, I think Achilles received Yosh's membership. Very nice. Thanks again, Yosh. Chase like the Henderson Gold Star lock. Yeah, that was the one play, especially on DraftKings, and I wish I would have even gotten to more than just 10% on Underdog, that really started to shape up as just an obvious play that wasn't getting crazy steamed there. So yeah, no problem there. Dat Mavis said, I did about 45 drafts this week and rolled 1.133% of the time. I just took my luck and clicked CMC every time this week. Did I play bad? No, you didn't. I had a shit ton of CMC early in the week. Like, I was at a point probably through 60 or 70 drafts where I had like 28% CMC and like 7% JSN. And I'm just like, the RNG stuff will eventually, work itself out. It did to an extent, but I did have to start balancing that out. I would say on only 45 drafts, I think you can start thinking about it a little bit more. When you have 150 drafts to balance it out, you can kind of trust the law of large numbers in that. But with 45, you might want to balance it out if it makes you queasy. Like, if you love the play, just keep clicking the play. I think there were reasons to not love the CMC spot this week versus the Rams compared to his spot last week against the Giants. But yeah, as always with these things, it comes down to your personal risk tolerance and your preferences with that. But yeah, I don't think that's bad. Like, CMC projected as the 101. He had the ADP of the 101. And if that's the edge on the slate, like last week, that was an edge. Like, every CMC team was a nutted team. You would have wanted him on every single squad. So I think from a process standpoint, it makes sense to take advantage of the RNG gods in your favor, even if it didn't work out in this instance. Yeah, this was really unfortunate. Davis saying Henderson not mattering in BR. Yeah, like there were so many of the Achane, Hendo, Trey McBride teams, which were a lot easier to get, especially if you were kind of pulling up. Like, I did some drafts where I took Achane and McBride at the 1-2 turn. And then you even had Henderson on those, like you were cooking. But then once Gibbs went nuts, it rendered it useless. Kind of similar to what happened last week with the Colston Loveland thing. It was like that guy was sitting in first place with a 27-point outing from Colston Loveland, and then Brock Bowers has the game of the century, and all of a sudden Colston Loveland doesn't even matter again. I was more worried about getting buried by Gibbs than JSN. Well, there you go. I guess you got to follow your hunch there, Dat Mavis. And I will share my Venmo with you as well, so you can tip me out for this advice on risk tolerance. All right, let's see here some other contests. I bricked out into bomb here. Shout out to Kobe Goat. What a name. Kobe Goat 2424 takes it down. With a dart to Roma Dunze. That mini correlation was really nice. The Gibbs, Achane, Igbuka, George Kittle here. Rome comes in 72% draft in this contest. Dart only at 59% in the bomb there. Chris finishes in second with for 4K, and Mike here in third. I think I showed a few of these on stream. I had a game stack here with Stafford, CMC, Kittle, and Adams, with Olave and Henry. But yeah, nothing doing enough to get home. This was the lineup that I thought had some potential. It was a Henderson, Igbuka mini correlation. It had Josh Allen with the Waddle bringback, but then the Dalton Kincaid 4.7 points. And then this one had Puka as well. The Dalton Kincaid was just too hard to overcome, the 16 points from Kittle and the however many from McBride. Like, I think if we look at all of these top lineups, they're all going to have Kittle or McBride. Like, when you have the two top tight ends who go for that much, look at every single one of these top ones has Kittle on it. Whoa, here's a Fannin. Okay, someone won with 6.4 points from Fannin. But yeah, pretty hard to take or to make up ground at tight end without Kittle or McBride. Yeah, FK Cooler says, I need to give up on Kenneth Walker once and for all. That was an interesting one to me. I did play him on this one game stack here into bomb, but everybody on the cram was really into Kenneth Walker, and it kind of surprised me. And I know he was only 5,300 on DraftKings. He was mostly undrafted. 8% here into bomb, which is probably a bad play on my part. But I wanted to play the angle of like a Seahawks route, which, actually panned out. I just didn't realize it was going to be all on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, I was surprised how interested everyone was in for Kenneth Walker. And didn't Kenneth Walker end up coming in pretty crazy high owned on DraftKings? I don't know if anyone has the ownership percentage on that, but yeah, that was a trendy pick from the cram. Yeah, coach talking about that Kittle touchdown. Probably one of the most absurd feats of athleticism, like when you adjust for his size. I mean, the coordination to stay in bounds, just completely stop on a dime and then extend and reach out for the touchdown. He's a freak, man. He is so fun to watch. Yes, George Halani, man. That was one of the funnier ShipCast moments yesterday. George Halani scoring there for the Seahawks. The Seahawks are just too good. It's just the defense gets it done. George Halani gets it done. It's like a three-way running back committee. Now you throw Shaheed in the mix. What a mess. What a mess. Yeah, I autoed a few Wildcats this week. I was looking really good for a while. I had a Gibbs, Achane, Igbuka, Nico, Kate Otten, and Baker team. But again, once Kittle and McBride went nuts, even having the Gibbs, Achane, Igbuka, Nico, it just wasn't going to be enough. But this team finished in 89th place for 100. Just ran some autoing with my ranks in here. Decent experiment, a little 2x on the auto experiment in week 10. Let's check in on the Dawg Bowl, of course. Dawg Bowl this week. We got Tubins or Tubinis. Do we have a pronunciation here? Barzy, who I believe is going to be joining the Badge Bros for the winner circle, and of course Chris. Monster day for Chris. What was it? Second into bomb, and punches a Dawg Bowl seat here as well. These are of course the 12-person drafts. This was a Purdy to Mac Jones swap here. Gibbs and Henderson, Chris Olave, Tez Johnson, George Kittle. Obviously, the texture of these teams are going to look different than the sixes. I don't think there was no way you could get Gibbs and Achane in the 12s, but you could certainly get Achane and Henderson or Gibbs and Henderson. This is just a really clean lineup here. Henderson, Tez Johnson, mini correlation, Mac Jones to Kittle, and then one off Olave and Gibbs. Congratulations there, Mr. Tubb. Barzy has a Caleb, naked Caleb here. Achane and Henderson, Emeka Egbuka, Jamison Williams, and Mark Andrews. So no correlation in this lineup, but just getting in all of the top scorers. JMO, of course, 100% drafted in the 12s. Yeah, no leverage pieces here. Just all of the best plays by Barzy. Excited to see Barzy on the masterclass. I think had a top 10 finish in the Battle Royale earlier this season after taking the masterclass. So stay hot, Barzy. And then Chris has a Drake May, Trevion Henderson stack with a Tez Johnson bring back. Of course, Jahmyr Gibbs along with JMO. And then Jawan Johnson. That was the scroll in the 12s, right? He comes in at only 70% drafted, scores 17.2 points. Pretty sick team there by from Chris there with the Jawan play. Yeah, Darnold, 10 completions yesterday. What was it, like 6 fantasy points, 7 fantasy points? Certainly one of those ones, like if you saw the score to the game in advance, you probably would have drafted the shit out of Sam Darnold, not realizing that it all came defensively. Also, one of those games, like, you know, we're always like sweating on the ShipCast, and you don't want the team to get pummeled too much where they just kind of like turtle shell and give up. That was the rare game where the Cardinals were getting shellacked, and yet Trey McBride just kept cooking. And I feel like it's like a tight needle to thread sometimes where you're not performing well, but you can get that garbage time. But man, Jacoby Brissett and Trey McBride were garbage time heroes. Pretty crazy, like thinking how because Gibbs and Achane were so dominant that Trey McBride just didn't matter in the 12s. Because the 2v2 or the 1v1 on round 1 running back with round 6 tight end, or even Kittle in round 3, it just couldn't keep up with the Achane and Gibbs team. So yeah, I don't even know where we would find our first McBride in here. Mathology there in 5th, trying to get his second seat. There's a Jawan. There's a Theo. There's a Kittle. Wow, Tubbs was all over it. 3 in the top 10. There's Crutches. Okay, there's Crutches. Yep, your first McBride there. JJ McCarthy, Devon Achane, Rome. Okay, so you did get the Achane and McBride. That's nice. Wow, getting McBride at pick 20. That was sick. Yeah, I didn't think that would have been possible. Yeah, Achane and then McBride comes all the way back. So there you go. Flea Flicker. This was the team I drafted on the cram. Shout out Dreaming of Sundays. Dreaming of Sundays is in the Ship Chasing Discord. They take it down with a Caleb, naked Caleb, Achane, Henderson, Nico, Olave, David Njoku. David Njoku at 25% drafted. 9.1 points gets it done. And goddamn Galen, you know, I can't make it through a stream or can't make it through a portfolio review without finding Galen at the top of one of the leaderboards. He finishes in 2nd here with a Goff JMO stack, has Schultz at 58% drafted, Zay, Breece Hall, and Achane there. So able to get it done with basically just the Achane and JMO pairings. This is, of course, a super small contest, only 144 entrants, so you don't really need to be perfect in this one. as always, I'll shout out from a couple weeks ago, After Dark with Galen. Tons of alpha on the Battle Royale. He's one of the guys behind the solver over at ETR, and he basically just started drafting as a way, I think, to kind of stress test and QA the product, and now he's turned into an absolute crusher. Lots of good nuggets from Galen on that show, if you want to go back and check that out. And then on Saturday, we had Joe Holka on. That's also an evergreen show. We didn't talk any slate specific stuff, just kind of more talking fantasy football content, sports betting, prediction markets, Joe's business, all kinds of stuff like that. So if you enjoy those kind of conversations, definitely check out Saturday's After Dark with Joe Holka. All right, should we look at some Eliminator and best ball stuff? Mazzone is trying to get us there. He has a hedge opportunity. He needs 9.95 from either Romeo Doubs or DeVonta Smith to advance in a limb. Their fantasy point projections are both exactly 9.95. I really like your chances. I like both those wide receivers. When I was doing some of my research on the game before the show and trying to identify some of the pick'em angles I might like, Dobbs and DeVonta were the two wide receivers that stood out to me. So I think you're in good shape. All right, do I have any more coffee? Yeah, I think I can pull off one more coffee pour here. All right, there we go. We got one more coffee pour here. So unfortunately, I'm going to lose my last bullet in the regular Eliminator contest. The dream has died. I kind of knew this was coming after my best team got bounced. I wanted the other team had the Jonathan Taylor and JSN and all of that on it. This one here, I knew was going to have to thread a tight needle. It was a CMC, Chase Brown, James Cook, James Conner, and my opponent also had James Cook. So it really left me with just CMC as my unique piece, and then CMC kind of flops. It did have Goff, McCarthy, Jones, so it's fine there. But then gets 0 points from Garrett Wilson. Jawan's fine. Pittman doesn't score for me. Cooper Kupp scores. Burden hits my lineup here. I still have Dobbs going tonight, but he has Love and has a pretty big lead. Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Lane. The tight ends as well, Laporta, Chig, Jatavian. This team I don't think had much life, so not going to be too disappointed. I think my disappointment was last week, losing that better team, but I am down 20 points, and they still have Jordan Love, who starts scoring at 16.7. The thing that really, they got huge performances from their cheap running backs. This TD Biff here, Tyler Algier, 17.7, Woody Marks, 15.1. So yeah, that was rough. They did have JSN. They still have DeVonta going tonight as well. So I am toast here unless Romeo Doubs somehow has like a 25-point game. The one team, though, that is looking decent in the Eliminator streets, my Big Elim, is still alive and well. It's actually in first in the pod here, scored 151 points. I think I pull this one up most weeks. Justin Herbert, Bryce Young, Matthew Stafford. That Herbert-Stafford combo is really nice. And then this team has Gibbs and Aaron Jones, so really nice to see Jones back in the fold and playing well. Took zeros from Ramondre and Tank. Did get the 8.8 from Manungai, even though he kind of fell back into that timeshare with Swift in the bad side of the timeshare, I'd say. Still nice that he finds the end zone there for me. And then the wide receivers are just kind of, I don't know, they're just middle of the road. Ladd, Tetaroya, Pickens, Jawan Jennings, Addison, Coker, Hopkins, but just a decent amount of floor with these guys. Will be nice to get George Pickens off the bye next week. And then the tight end, this is where it really shines. You know, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid gets injured in that game, but McBride, you know, scoring 23.2 points. Always nice to be able to separate from the pod with the elite tight end there. So yeah, hopefully Kincaid's all right, but Trey McBride can certainly put this team on its back here. So yes, down to just that in the eliminator streets. I believe our friend PD over here at BBMDB had a bug or something with his scoring. So that update is coming around 11 a.m. Central Time, he says. So not a ton to look at over here, just with those scores not being updated. I will say, though, the Bash team that we drafted is, man, that team is alive and well. I believe it's top 500 now. Let's go look here. All right, it's in 481st place. I will give the refresher here. Anyone who watches this show regularly is very familiar with this team that was drafted with 6 members from the Deposit Kingdom community. Daniel Jones, CJ Stroud, Herbert. Get healthy, Stroud, but the Jones, Herbert doing their job. Nice to see Woody Marks. Little sneaky breakout from Woody Marks yesterday. This team, of course, has had the Gibbs and Taylor explosions. Breece Hall scores. Woody Marks, Brashard Smith, the entire room, running back room healthy in that Taylor-Gibbs combo is elite. Then this team also has JSN, Cortland Sutton, Deebo Samuel, even Jerry Jeudy gets going. Jaden Higgins scores. Keenan Allen, Isaac Tesla, again, fully healthy wide receiver room here. And then the 3 tight end, this was actually the bugaboo this week. Jonnu Smith, Jake Ferguson on bye, Kelsey on bye. So I believe we're taking a 0 or 0.9 or whatever Jonnu scored last night. What did he have? Do we have the box score for him last night? Taking the 0 at tight end, but does not matter when Gibbs and Taylor are going absolutely nuts. So yeah, 481st place here. Hopefully we can keep this rolling. Absolutely love this team. Taylor, Gibbs, JSN. What a fun trio. Hit on Herbert late, hit on Jones late. Tight end is really the one spot where it's like, can we get, Ferguson and Kelsey, the Ferguson days of him as like tight end 1 just seems so far in the rearview mirror right now with CeeDee Lamb back in the fold. But I think with this trio, we are still certainly in the mix there. It is. It's the team of destiny. Chad, one of the drafters. Yosh, one of the drafters. The other team that's up here is the team I drafted with Leone on a Best Ball Breakfast. It's at 1,400 points. For reference, that Bash team has 1,424 points. This Leone team has Goff, Fields, and Purdy. So threaded the needle this week with no, I guess Fields played. Purdy, though, rumored to come back. I mean, Kyle Shanahan every single week just absolutely edging us with this Brock Purdy return. But this team has a sick running back room as well. A little hyper-fragile build here. Barkley, Taylor, Breece Hall, and Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson, is that back-to-back weeks scoring a touchdown for Brian Robinson? I believe so. He's starting to kind of play the Tyler Algier to CMC's Bijan there in that offense. And then this is just a really balanced wide receiver room. JSN, Jamo Olave, Jawan Jennings, Josh Downs, Hollywood Brown, Troy Franklin, Quentin Johnston. Like, this is, for having a hyper-fragile team with Taylor and Barkley, this is about as good as it can get for wide receivers. Again, really healthy. JSN, Jamo, Olave, Jawan, Downs, Hollywood, Franklin, QJ. The back-end wide receivers, especially Franklin and QJ, to have that big of scores from your last wide receivers is pretty sick. And then this is arguably an even better tight end room. Maybe not. I don't know. It's pretty close. What do you guys think? What would you rather have? Ferguson, Jonnu, and Kelsey, or Fannin, Ertz, and Hunter Henry? I guess that's pretty close. But yeah, solid tight end room here. Probably Fannin just because of his draft percentage. Only 40% drafted there to have a relatively unique piece. Let's see. What other best ball stuff do we want to look on? Look at this, Charlie. Our big dog team is clawing back. People always ask me how the $500 teams are doing. I believe, a month ago? I don't know if Charlie's watching. We were in like 10th or 11th place. We're up to 5th, 1125. Still have a little over 100 points to close the gap to second to advance. So might be too much to ask But we did have the Achane here. We just really need some help at RB2. Achane, RJ Harvey, Montgomery, Tootin, Jaden Blue, Trey Benson. Yeah, we were slapping it up in that one. Nico, though, JSN, Golden, Jaden Higgins, Dante Thornton, remember him, Jalen Coker, Troy Franklin, Ingram, Jatavian Sanders, Kate Otten pops up there. So who knows? Maybe we could keep rolling. Although this team hasn't even hit its quarterback scoring yet. Jalen Hurts, Bo Nix. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Pat says our team from the Bash put up 160. Let's take a look. Here it is. Yeah, we are easily in first place here. This is the team I drafted with Pat. It is a Jared Goff, Stafford, Cam Ward. Cam Ward, huh? Jonathan Taylor, Kyron, Brian Robinson, Scattaboo, Sanders. Man. So we are down to a hyper fragile build here, Pat, with Jonathan Taylor, Kyron, and Brian Robinson. But we do have Puka, J-Mo, Metcalf, Jacoby, who got a new lease on life here with the Jags, Shakir, of course, your favorite, Pat, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Lockett, who actually is showing signs of life. That was always the thesis of the play. When you take Tyler Lockett to pair with Cam Ward for early season production, you were definitely banking on it coming via Geno Smith and the Las Vegas Raiders. And then we do love this tight end room, Tyler Warren, Dalton Kincaid, and Jake Ferguson. Let's see here. The team I drafted with Ron Stewart on the Deposit Kingdom channel is in first place here. Oh, yeah, this was the video that was titled something like Ron Stewart what was it? Something about loving Luther Burden more than his wife and kids. But this team, of course, has Caleb Williams, but it has Sam Darnold with JSN. I think I even remember in that video, like we had JSN and, you're sitting there on the clock at the end. You're just like hemming and hawing and you go, I guess you need a QB3. I guess we'll take Sam Darnold. Thank God for correlation, right? Getting you on the picks you don't want to make. This team has Achane, Breece Hall, Kamara, Tajay Spears, and Ray Davis. So Achane and Breece doing enough there. But Amon-Ra, JSN, Olave, Downs, Igbuka, Burden, Lockett. That's a fun wide receiver room there. Amon-Ra, JSN, Olave, Igbuka, and then, get some occasional spikes from Downs and Burden. And then the tight ends, Kyle Pitts, Chig, and Juwan. All right. I can see that. Hanging. Let's see. I have a couple solo best ball breakfasts in here. Is this going to be a Kyler Arizona team? Man, what a quarterback room. Kyler, Tua, and Daniel Jones. Again, you take Kyler Murray at pick 98, only to have him end up in IR. Daniel Jones at pick 194, carrying the team. But this one has Jonathan Taylor, Montgomery, Tootin, Austin Eckler, rest in peace, Dylan Sampson, Jefferson, J-Mo, Jalen Waddle. Man, Jalen Waddle's really coming on lately. Addison, Pittman, Malik Washington, Franklin, Jalen Noel. And, of course, the reason any Arizona team is going to be in first place is because of Trey McBride here. All right. I think that's enough best ball mania hawking for right now. Let's see. What do we want to do? Is there anything else here? In the we could check in on the Pick'em Street here real quick. This one was brutal. If you guys watched ShipCast, I sold out our Pick'em. We had the 4-legger. Pat had Kyron TD. Davis had Jawan Jennings higher than 48.5 receiving yards. Jacob had Gibbs higher than 16.25 fantasy points. And I put in one Mr. Deebo Samuel, 11.05 points. We get 10.9 fantasy points from Deebo Samuel. Almost went 2 for 2 on our show pick'ems. Last week was 5 legs. This week 4. Almost 9 for 9 on picks. And Deebo sells me out, man. Ugh. Oh, it's so painful. We did get a little redemption, though, with a second half pick'em. We dialed it up at halftime. Corum, Kittle, and Bill. So, salvage that. But rough day for me in the pick'em streets. This was my Dawg Bowl qualifier. Let's see here. I had Deebo TD, Olave TD, but then I had Nico, Garrett Wilson, Cade Otton. Nico and Cade Otton had nice days, but no tutties, and then Garrett Wilson gets hurt. Gets hurt. Let me show you the one I did from the cram. I pulled this up on the ShipCast. This tilted me so much because this core, I'm like, let's put in like 3 of my favorite plays on the slate to the core for people watching the cram. If you told me I had a pick'em entry with Tez Johnson, Trevion Henderson, and Chris Olave, I would have said green. That is green. That hit. There's no way that doesn't hit. What if I told you all 3 of the picks whiffed? I completely failed at identifying how these people would score. I knew they would score, but I whiffed on the method of that scoring. Tez Johnson, higher than 45.5 receiving yards. He gets to 42 receiving yards, but has 2 touchdowns. Trevion Henderson, I was like, let me play this through the receiving game. A little tougher to run on the Bucs. Let's get some of the check downs, get Trevion Henderson cooking in the screen game. 3 receiving yards, despite going nuts and ripping off 2 long runs. And then Chris Olave, who goes nuts, scores a touchdown. What? Didn't he clear 100 yards receiving? He has 5.5 receptions was his line, and he gets to 5 receptions. Disgusting. Any weekly winners sweats, Pete? No. I only have 1 weekly winners team. So no, I don't think I have any sweats. Brady says, Pete, why do I suck at DFS? Should I just touch grass? Dude, DFS is so hard. I mean, we were talking about this today. I had one of my best days on DraftKings this year. I was dialed in. Most of my takes were like spot on, and I 5X'd. And that'll probably be like my best day of the year. Underdog, I feel like I've been playing well. I feel pretty dialed in there, and haven't gotten the combos to get together in the right way. It's hard, man. It's hard. The games are tough. People play well. The tools are good. The projections are good. You just got to be able to stay in the game and build up, as I said in the P.O. Box newsletter, my newsletter this week, you got to build up the calluses and make sure you're kind of evaluating your process and how you're playing and not necessarily the results, because the results really do require the perfection and the combos being right. Oh yeah. How did April react to the Deebo? Yeah, I went upstairs and she asked me, I said, hey, April, Deebo really sold me out today. And she said, what happened to Deebo? And I said, well, he was, less than a half point short of making me and the boys some money. And she said, I'm sorry, Daddy. She said, I'm sorry. Some of that story is made up, but I'm sure you can discern which part of it. But April does ask. She does ask. That part is not a lie. She literally, whenever I talk about football, she says, what happened to Deebo? She knows it's a bit now. So she, like her dad, likes to lean into a good bit. T-Cage, where's that Jerry Jeudy pick'em? Yes. So that one I believe was very close as well. So this one, dude, we did Jeudy higher than 5.5 receptions and Jalen Waddle higher than 99.5 receiving yards. Waddle gets to 84. So another one that was pretty directionally accurate there. Unfortunate. Yeah, I think our core on, what was this one? Sometimes I look at these and I don't even remember these. Oh, was this from Monday night last week? Yeah, that was from last week's show. We were all on Zay Jones, and then Zay Jones bageled. We need Rejempson tonight. Where was the core from off and on the clock? Whatever. I can't find it. Whatever. I'm done looking at my pick'em graveyard. All right. Let's head over. Yeah, let's look at a little guillotine here. Matthew says I had a guillotine where a guy started Nick Sutton Bowers and will advance because RJ Harvey and Kincaid dudded on the chopped. There you go. Let's pull it up and see how we're doing in the guillotine streets here. Let's first look at the Deposit Kingdom and the ship chasing leagues where I'm unfortunately bounced. We'll check in on Deposit Kingdom here. Shout out Frankie, first place this week. Mathology, Mathology, he's got 77 points, but he does have one remaining player going tonight. Has Jordan Love. Okay. All right, has Jordan Love, but the next person on the chopping block, our guy Damoney, has Josh Jacobs and A.J. Brown. So I would not rule Mathology out quite yet. Would not rule him out. Actually has a lead here plus Jordan Love. Yeah, I don't know. I would even maybe say the projections are a little frothy for Damoney here. I would say with Love just having a much higher floor than A.J. Brown, I guess it does really come down to that Love Jacobs. And those guys are going to be pretty negatively correlated too. So I think, yeah, Mathology is very much live in this one. Good luck. That'll be a fun one to sweat out for Damoney in Mathology. Over on the Ship Chasing Guillotine League, man, my voice is, I had some tea this morning. Feel like I lost my voice. Looks like Charlie is going to be on the block. He is down 21 points. Who does he have going tonight? It only has Romeo Dobbs. So 21 points to make up, plus the person ahead of him also has some players going tonight. Emo has AJ Brown. So yeah, that's going to be too hard for him to overcome most likely. So we're probably going to lose Charlie here. Greg, and there you see Karain up here hanging on. Karain's had a nice team in this. May, Barkley, Walker, Waddle, Zay, McBride, Adams, Olave. Yeah, that's a nice guillotine ass team right there. I am in the two that I'm alive in, my teams have been looking pretty good. Been pretty active on the waiver. I'm sitting in third place this week. This is the Hollywood League with JJ and Tom Everett Scott. I have Drake May, ETN, Gibbs goes nuts. I have Flowers. I have DeVonta going tonight. Bowers dud last night, but I played Trevion Henderson and Judkins here. Have guys like, I didn't even play Brees. I had to basically sit one of ETN, Henderson. I wasn't sitting Judkins or Gibbs, obviously. So Brees, I ended up thinking he had like a slightly lower floor than ETN, but pretty good running back room there. And basically just need to probably need to bid on one really legit wide receiver one. And then this team can cook. And then in the Fantasy Life League, this is the one where I paid up for Puka and have built a pretty strong team here. Yeah, this is my team with JT. So 181 points this week. I have Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Cook, Puka, Olave, Kittle, Trevion Henderson, and Troy Franklin. Sitting on like Bucky. Got Kittle pretty cheap on waivers this week. No one went too heavy on him. Always nice sneaking back those guys, like either coming back from injury or who just haven't exploded lately in the case of Kittle. So yeah, this team is coming together well here, and we'll try to keep it rolling in those two guillotine leagues. Fucking Deebo, man. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. Let's see here. Should we talk a little Monday Night Football? Let's do our normal little primetime Palooza. Who's our Thursday night game this week? While this goes, this is I haven't had to do this in a while, but I have to go to the bathroom. I've been chugging tea and coffee this morning. I'm going to give you guys a little dance pop music. I'll be right back, and we will draft from the 1-2 here. All right, we're back. We're back. Did you guys behave? You guys behave yourselves while I was gone? All right, we got the 102. Jacobs goes first. I feel like you got to take Barkley, right? It's got to be Barkley here. So it's Jets and Patriots on Thursday night. That sounds like it's going to be an awful game. I guess Patriots are fun enough that maybe they could make that interesting. But I think we should all just be so scarred by Thursday night football at this point that your baseline expectation should just be it will be the worst game ever. All right, so we go Barkley. Let's take a quick overview of this slate here. Quarterback, you have Hurts, May, Love, and Fields. Not a bad quarterback slate. Tight end, you have Goedert, Henry, Musgrave, Taylor. So pretty flat there, I would say. Running back, you have Barkley and Jacobs up top, then Brees, Trevion, maybe Ramondre back. Wide receivers, pretty deep. You go A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Diggs, Dobbs, Garrett Wilson, Watson. All right, we are back on the clock. Henderson goes. We can grab Drake May here. I do think, is the projection close enough? I mean, May has been playing out of his mind. I think what we do, I think there's a big drop off from DeVonta to Diggs. Maybe not big, but I like DeVonta a lot tonight. So I'm gonna go DeVonta, and then if he goes Drake May, which he should, I'll scoop up Love probably, so I don't have to deal with Fields. And then the tight end and these other wide receiver plays, it's pretty flat. So yeah, I think I will grab Love here. So we go Love, Barkley, and DeVonta to start here. So playing that game. Hendo house calls on Thursday. Jets Pats week 17 preview. You're right. I forgot about that. Kendrick, thank you for always servicing the audio listener crew. I try my best. I try my best for you audio listeners. As always, I do post all of these podcasts to the In a Vacuum podcast feed, including the Friday shows, Often on the Clock, Bully the Sims, Block Party, Battle Royale Bash. All of those shows go on the In a Vacuum podcast feed. I even throw up the show I do on Thursdays on Fantasy Life, the DFS Jam. I throw that up on the In a Vacuum podcast feed. Luke Musgrave stepping in for Kraft is interesting. The drafter behind me doesn't have a tight end, and I guess Mason Taylor's fine, but Musgrave has probably a little more juice, and I need a good stacking partner for Love here. So we'll go Musgrave. What do we think? Do we think the Ramondre Q tag is worth taking a stab on? Garrett Wilson being evaluated. Man, this is just like Q tag city, huh? Garrett Wilson, Booty, Golden. Man, that's rough. Maybe we'll just shoot for the moon and take Garrett Wilson. And if not, I mean, it's not like the swaps are bad. The question is, yeah, man, this is a 3 wide receiver build, right? We're not clicking Emmanuel Wilson, Tank Bigsby, Isaiah Davis. Who's our favorite wide receiver down here? Booty, Golden. I think Kyle Williams is interesting, right? I mean, what was the utilization? I mean, I know he scored the touchdown. I actually am curious how much his routes jumped from last week. So, okay, so they increased. They went from 50% to 58%. And the nice thing is he actually saw, I guess, a little bit of a target boost. He's still not earning targets at a big clip. 4% of the targets in week 9, 7% in week 10 here for Kyle Williams. Obviously has the big playability, and but it probably, the thesis is definitely complicated when Booty returns, because I still think they're going to, slide Kyle Williams back to an even smaller role. Let's see. There were so many people that wanted the Douglas stuff, and the Douglas role just does not change. 31% of the snaps. Always has like a decent targets per route run, but it was last week was abnormal at 46%. Is Matthew Golden going to play tonight? Let's just take Matthew Golden. We have Jordan Love. We'll just wish cast Matthew Golden doing something, anything. Here's the final team. Kind of a gross PTP slate, honestly, with all the Q tags. Jordan Love to Matthew Golden and Musgrave, double bring back Barkley and DeVonta Smith, and then Garrett Wilson. All right, guys. Let's get in the pick'em lab. I have a few things I like, and I want to let's get a mind meld here. We do have a 40% boost in the lobby. So some of the things I like going away from Dallas Goedert. He has just been scoring touchdowns at a truly unsustainable rate. Green Bay's actually been pretty good against tight ends. They've been far leakier against wide receivers. I like DeVonta Smith tonight. So I like a Goedert fade, a DeVonta Smith higher. I also like Romeo Doubs stuff on the Packers. Obviously, their most consistent wide receiver. He's been in the Leone model, continues to kind of underperform relative to his expected points. So I like some Dobbs stuff there as well. I do think it's like a decent setup for both running backs as well. It's just like the Barkley and Jacobs numbers are always so high. 17.5 rushing attempts for Barkley there. Yes, and then of course there's the Jalen Hurts tush push revenge narrative. That actually isn't bad that they're giving you plus money on it. I thought for sure that would not be plus money. All right, Josh is my pick'em whisperer. DeVonta over receiving yards. Goedert anytime TD. That's the one I'm fading. Hurts under longest rush. My 3 faves on the Philly side. So we're in lockstep on the DeVonta Smith. That is like normally like some of those narrative ones. I feel like they're priced like absurd. Like I can't believe this isn't 0.9x for Hurts to get a tush push, revenge tush push. Oops. With Dobbs, the question is, do we play receiving yards or receptions? His targets have been 8, 9, 8, 6, 10. We could just play the targets. It's a little bit lower, but I mean, he is crushed. He has crushed this I guess he had 1 week where he didn't clear 6 targets, but that's probably the best way. Then we don't even have to deal with, I kind of like that. What do you guys think about this? If we use our 40% boost on this, so you get a 5.4 up to 7.7, DeVonta Smith higher 54.5, Jalen Hurts tush push, Romeo Doubs 6.5 targets. Josh mentioning that Cam Jurgens being out probably is juice the Hurts anytime touchdown. Okay. Well, I guess we find out once and for all who is responsible for the tush push. I think we've already learned that Jurgens was just a system tush pusher, right? Once Kelsey retired, it's just anybody just gets in there and they just tush push it. It's always been about Hurts. The other way, like what I'd like to do is kind of run this twice. I'd like to run it once with Hurts scoring and then maybe once with, I guess you could run it twice with because they'll do a little stuff with the Goedert there. If Josh likes the Goedert stuff, you could run this twice. Once with Hurts and once with Goedert scoring a touchdown. But let's let this rip. DeVonta Smith higher 54.5, Jalen Hurts tush push, Romeo Doubs 6.5 targets. That's what I'm officially using the boost on. And then I'm going to run this twice. All right, I wasn't on the Goedert stuff, but if Josh is on the Goedert anytime TD, we'll run this twice. Same core with DeVonta and Dobbs, but just with the Goedert tutty. And then what? Do we want to do like one slide with some of these guys? I think we definitely slide DeVonta, right? Like this could be a nice like 100-yard spot for DeVonta. The other fun guy to slide that I kind of like the setup for is Watson. What have been his receptions here? So he's had a 33-yard reception and a 52-yard reception, 85 and 58 yards. So his longest reception's 21. And what has he done here? He's done a 33 and a 52. So if you take him to like a 34 and a half, that's 1.52. What's the equivalent of that for? I think you just play him to 70 yards if you want to play that angle. He's at a 58 and an 85. What do we think about this? This feels nice, right? DeVonta Smith, 100 yards. Christian Watson, 69 and a half for a 13.2x. Dude, is this true? This is incredible intel, if so. My Philly source told me the Birds have been practicing a fake tush-push skyhook pass to Goedert. That sounds just absurd enough to be true. All right, $15 for 200 on this simple Smith Watson. All right, we have a few other suggestions. Steven likes unders on all Packers. Coolers likes something with Jordan Love rushing, either attempts or yards. He said 3+ attempts in all but 2 games. What's his attempts at? 3.5 rush attempts. So he's been at, I guess recently he hasn't been running quite as much, but he had games of 28, 26, 22. I feel like the way that's been hitting, it's been like kind of polarized to where you'd almost want to slide it. Take him up to like 24 and a half. Love. Do another, just a little slide here. Do the DeVonta. Let's do that. And then we'll lower the DeVonta on this one from 100 to 89.5. So you do Jordan Love, 25 yards rushing. Smith, 90 yards receiving. That's another 13.18 there. Another like 15 to win around 200. All right. I think we're good. I think we're good here. Sorry, Steven, who suggested all Packers lowers. I did not comply. Did I post these in the chat, guys? I can't remember if I did. Here, I'll post them all at once here. I'll also put them in the show notes in the description if you guys are watching. Did that cut that off? Jeez. All right. Let me try the second one again since it cut off the link. There you go. Yeah, if you're watching after the fact, you can check it in the comments or the show description. Should we do a little first look here? Week 11. Already to week 11. See how we're looking here. We do have the playbooks up. Let's see what we're looking at for week 11 here. All right. So, quarterback. All right, we're back to being loaded here. We got Lamar, Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, Baker, Stafford. Our top 6 there. There we go. Running back, we got CMC, Bijan, Jacobs, Rico, maybe Bucky back. We'll see. Warren, Cook, Henry. The opening ADPs are always so funny. James Cook down at 16.7. Henry, Kyron, Swift, Judkins. Running backs, okay. Wide receiver, okay, yeah, we're loaded. We get the big three. We get Chase, JSN, Puka, and Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice should not be going after Drake London. Justin Jefferson, Nico, Igbuka, Adams. And then tight end, no Brock Bowers, but McBride, Kittle, Kelsey, Gadsden. Why does Hawkinson have an ADP of 5? Kincaid, Pitts, Schultz, Fannin, Andrews, Loveland. They really are. What's up, Star Kindler? The playbook ADPs be wild and out. We got the 1-4. Yeah, Lamar Jackson with the 102. Not a single badge in here. You guys didn't want to draft with me? Or did it autofill when I joined? Who are these people? Who are these non-badgers just piling into the playbook? And they go Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Man, are we Jamar Chase or JSN? I think I'm JSN, man. Is that crazy? I mean, it can't be crazy, but JSN over. So it's Cincy at Pitt. We've seen Pitt stymie some of these passing games. I'm going JSN in what should be finally a competitive game for both the Rams and the Seahawks. Get 4 quarters of JSN. Looks like I'm in the minority. You guys like Chase? I think Pitt could give Flacco some issues. My 12-person playbook had 8 no Badgers this morning. Who are these Badgers people frothing for NFL contests on a Monday morning? Wow, you guys are so firmly on Chase over JSN. This dude was pacing to score like 40 points yesterday, and then they didn't even need him. It's not a hill I'm going to die on, but I don't think it's super obvious. Chase or JSN. What do we want to do here? Jacobs versus the Giants feels like a layup, right? I mean, Jacobs is going to go over Jefferson. He's going to go over the quarterbacks. He's going to move up. The other thing about the Chase and Flacco stuff is like, I haven't heard like the updated reports from what happened during their bye week, but they like literally sent Joe Flacco home because his arm, he could not move his arm. Like there is a lot of fragility with the Chase stuff the second Joe Flacco is not healthy. But I haven't heard any updated stuff. I assume icing your shoulder for 2 weeks should probably do the trick. What are you going to do, Scrap Daddy? What are you going to do? No Badgers love going quarterback and tight end. Lamar Jackson, George Kittle. George Kittle at 11 with an ADP of 23.4. Not that the ADPs matter. I'm going to put McBride in the queue. I'm going to put Rashee Rice in the queue. James Cook at home versus Tampa should not be going that low. Let me have Rashi, PK. Let me have him. Man, do we think Bucky plays? The way that like stuff was reported last week when Godwin and him both coming out of the bye. Okay, thank you. They're gonna give me Rashi here. Rashi Rice at pick 16. Seems good. My gut says Bucky doesn't play. And if he does, I do think it could be kind of gross. I think it could be kind of gross with his first game back. You got to imagine still some White, still some Tucker. I don't know. I want him back, but I think we're still probably a few weeks away from Bucky really mattering for fantasy purposes. Igbuka down here is nice too. Man, this is but I think you just got to go 2 running backs here. Yeah, this is a nice running back slate. Chat's already mentioned Jones. They've mentioned Marks. These guys are all. I think what I do here, I think I take Patrick Mahomes because there's so many good running back options. And this guy here, Scrappy's probably going to take Mahomes if I don't. So let's get Mahomes with Rice. We'll go Mahomes, Rice. We got Jacobs, JSN. We could just double it with Kelsey. I didn't realize. So what? Gadsden got dinged up last night? What happened there? Exited in the third quarter. Damn, that sucks. Kincaid also hurt with the hamstring. Hopefully the Bills will be able to recover after losing their tight end 3. Nice little bump for Jackson Hawes. What are these? Kyron, Judkins, Jones. Who's our favorite of those? I think I just play Kyron on this team. We'll play the mini correlation. Kyron Tutties, JSN on the other side. It's nice, though, to have a good running back slate, though, after last week. And now we got to figure out our tight end. Kelsey went. What do we think? Schultz at Tennessee, Kyle Pitts. What did Pitts do in London or Berlin? Nothing. 2 for 38. Who's our tight end here, guys? What's the best tight end on the board? Hawkinson, Kincaid, Pitts, Schultz, Fannin, Andrews, Loveland. Let's do a quick little tight end DVP if nobody has strong takes. Oh, should we do Jonnu? Yeah, there you go. Number 1. Bengals biggest boost. Sure. Let's do it. What is the utilization? I mean, I'm going to time out here anyways, but what was the split between him and Freiermuth last night? So Jonnu was 71% of the routes, back up there, 7% of the targets. Freiermuth hovering in the 50% range. Yeah, you can see it. Don't love the tight end committee, but, we can DVP it up. There wasn't really anything to GM it with at tight end. In hindsight, I probably should have gone early tight end. Who should I have taken? I should have taken McBride over Jacobs, just knowing how this draft went and with the running back value. All right, guys, here's the final team, our first team of the week. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, JSN, Rashee Rice, Jonnu. Let's see what our first team of the week was last week. I never look at the playbook. Let's see. Oh, we cashed. We finished in 28th place on our stream draft last Monday. Can you believe that, guys? We had a Drake May, Gibbs, Swift, Igbuka, Diggs, Trey McBride. There you go. There you go. The first look. That's what if the first look is what you need. 28th place in the playbook. Classic 2x min cash. All right, guys. Appreciate all of you. Hope you have a good rest of your Monday. Enjoy the Tush Push extravaganza tonight. We got the normal slate of shows this week. Swolecast tomorrow. Thursday, Fantasy Life Draft Stream. Lulz, Battle Royale Bash. Friday, Block Party, off and on the clock. All of the usual goodness. Come join us in the Deposit Kingdom Discord. If you aren't already in there, link down below. And good luck tonight with all of your guys' final Monday night sweats. See you next time on the Portfolio Review.